Welcome to another Lessons with Lemmon. Today is part 3 in my beginner series, and we're going to be talking about stance and alignment and how the way you stand and line yourself up affects your consistency when you play golf. Let's get started. When I first start working with students, after I've checked their grip, which I did in the last video, I want to make sure that they have the correct stance with the club when they set up to the ball. So ideally, when you're taking your stance, and I've got an 8-iron here just as an example, when you're taking your stance, you want to have your feet about hip width apart, maybe a little bit wider than your hips. And again, this is for me hitting an 8-iron. Now, when I'm hitting a driver, I'll have a little wider stance because I'm taking a little more, just a little more aggressive swing, a little bigger swing because it's a little bigger club. It's a little farther out in front of me. But to begin with a standard 8-iron or a wedge or something like that, you want to set up with your feet about hip width apart, or just a little bit wider than hip width apart, and make sure your toes are pointing forward, but also you can have your feet slightly pointing outwards, your toes pointing outwards. And the reason we do this is to help with your hip turn. With your feet pointed, if your feet were square or if you even pointed inwards, it would make it a little more difficult to get your hips turning. But if you've got your feet slightly open, not super open, slightly open, it makes it a lot easier to get a good hip turn in the golf swing. So that's the first part. The next part is we want to make sure that we set up with the golf ball in the middle of our stance, like here. So this is an 8-iron as an example. If you were hitting driver, you would have the ball much farther forward in your stance. And if you're hitting a wedge, you'd have it maybe a little bit farther back in your stance, unless you're trying to hit a low shot. So this is the middle of your stance, the ball in the middle of your stance. If you had the ball back here, it would be in the back of your stance, and then up here would be forward or in front of your stance. And that would be good if you're hitting a driver. If you're hitting driver, we're going to be putting the ball a little forward in the stance because we'll be hitting up on the ball. But with a normal club like an 8-iron, a mid-iron, or kind of a wedge, you want to have that in the middle of your stance because we'll be hitting down on the ball with a descending blow and hitting the ball first. And we want to make sure that we're catching the ball cleanly. So we want to keep the ball in the middle of our stance. And you can see it down the line this way, that the ball, so my hands will be resting down like this. The club is out in front of me, a little bit up above my head. And you want to keep that distance right there from yourself. So that distance is going to be different depending how tall you are, what club you're hitting. So with this 8-iron, it's not too far out in front of me. But if I was hitting a driver, it's going to be farther out in front of me. And if I was a little shorter or taller, depending on my club setup, this could also vary a little bit as well. And that's one of the things that I think makes golf difficult. So if you're playing baseball, the plate where the pitcher has to throw the ball across is static and it stays in the same spot. But when you're playing golf, even if the ball is just sitting still, but you have to adjust how you're standing depending on what club you're hitting. So this is an 8-iron. And then if I was hitting a 4-iron, so here's a 4-iron. So the 4-iron's a little bit longer, so that'll be a little farther out in front of me so I can get the proper strike on the ball. And then if we were hitting a driver, the driver's the longest club in the bag, and so that's even farther out in front of me because it's so much longer. So the next thing I want to talk about is alignment and how you should properly align yourself up to the ball to give yourself the best chance to hit it straight. So what we're aiming at today, we've got the ball down here, we've got the pin in the background, and so that's my target line right now. And when I normally do this out on the golf course, I'll stand right here and look at the ball and then look at my target. And after I do that, I'll align myself up to take the shot. Now, I want to make sure that when you're doing this, that your feet are properly lined up like this. And these alignment sticks are a great tool to use. I use these all the time when I'm practicing on the range, and I use this with almost every lesson I do with my students. And it's just to check to make sure that you're lining yourself up properly. So I take my stance, make sure my feet are lined up straight at the target, and then I have this one there for reference as well. And then I know that when I take the club back, I'm going to give myself the best chance to hit it straight at my target, which is the pin in this circumstance. Now, what happens to me, pros, amateurs, everybody, is we kind of get, because we have two eyes and the way we look at things is a little different. So if I didn't have these alignment sticks here and I came up and set up to the ball, to the target, sometimes this will feel like I'm hitting it and I'm aiming straight at the target, when you can see clearly that my legs or my feet are lined up to the right. Or sometimes I'll go like this and look over here. I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm lined up, when in reality, I'm actually lining way left of the target. And it's something you have to get used to, because you have two eyes and the way your vision works. This doesn't always feel like you're aiming directly at the target. Like when you stand behind it, it makes sense. You can see yourself lined up. And then you stand up next on top of the ball, or stand up to the ball and line up. And to me, this feels like I'm aiming actually a little bit to the right. But I know, since I've used the alignment stick so many times, that I'm actually lined up squarely to the ball. And if I hit it correctly, it's going to go there. So again, anytime you practice on the range or pretty much anywhere, make sure you use some alignment sticks to help keep you centered and aligned straight at the target. And after playing golf, maybe just a couple days or a couple weeks, it seems like, this happens to me all the time, my alignment gets off a little bit. And I'll step up like on a par 3 and I see the target. I step up to take the shot and it looks like I'm aiming right at the target. I hit my shot and I'm like, why did that go to the left? I don't understand. And again, it's because my alignment's off. And the alignment is a very, very important part of your golf swing. And the better your alignment and the more you get used to being aligned correctly with the straight at the target, the more consistent your shots will be and the better chance you have of hitting the ball where you'd like it to go. Thanks for joining me for this Lessons with Lemon. Please like, subscribe, and comment below what you're working on in your game and what you would like me to cover on an upcoming episode of Lessons with Lemon. Thanks for hanging out, guys. Have a great day. All about alignment in your stance and how that affects the ball flight and all that other stuff that we just talked about, so why should I say this again? Oh, shoot.